So, Heavenly Creator, we come to you today. Please embrace each and every one of us that are on this Zoom call and connect us through our heart chakra so that we will unite as one in understanding and love, unconditional love of all things. Give us the wisdom to understand within our own hearts the messages that are going to come through today for each and every one of us. We pray for everybody that is struggling at this time and for the people that are dealing with flooding and fires, and we ask that you send them the emotional support that they need through their guides and angels, as we ask for the same thing. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I'll share the song.
I know it's all you've got to just be strong. And it's a fight just to keep it together. I know you think that you are too far gone, but hope is never lost. Hope is never lost. Hold on, don't let go. Hey, hold on, don't let go. Just stay one step closer. Put one foot in front of the other. You'll get through this. Just follow the light in the darkness. You're gonna be okay. I know your heart is heavy from those nights, but just remember that you are a fighter, a fighter. You never know just what tomorrow holds, and you're stronger than you know. You're stronger than you know. Hold on, don't let go. Hey, hold on, don't let go. Just stay one step closer. Put one foot in front of the other. You'll get through this. Just follow the light in the darkness. One step closer. Put one foot in front of the other. You'll get through this. Just follow the light in the darkness. You're gonna be okay. And when the night is closing in, don't give up and don't give in. This won't last, it's not the end, it's not the end. You're gonna be okay. When the night is closing in, don't give up and don't give in. This won't last, it's not the end, it's not the end. You're gonna be okay.
That's beautiful. It's all your show. And
Okay, so I chose that song because each and every one of us goes through times when we just feel like how can we even get through the things that we go through? And we are searching, you know, we reach out to our friends for support during those times. And I don't know if it's happened to y'all, but most of the time when you're going through something that's really traumatic for you, you usually cannot find anybody to talk to you because somebody's busy. And then you get to that point where you go, oh, I'm all by myself. I have no one. This happens so that you can understand that you always have someone. You have God, you have your spirit guides. You're not ever alone. And it's also to teach you that this is energy, not the emotion that you're feeling at the time. You are to feel it, but you're not to hold on to it. It's like I have told you know, talked about in the other lessons. This is a language that is coming through us. And once you understand it's a language and it's not an emotion and it's not you, then you can let go of it a lot quicker and it passes a lot quicker. Doesn't mean you won't feel those emotions. Doesn't mean you won't react to those emotions because we live in a human body and we will react because that's our humanness. But guess what? That song was saying, you know, follow the light in the darkness. The light that's in that darkness at that time is you. And when you realize that that light is you, and you can bring yourself out of that darkness through the choices of how you choose to think about what's happening to you. So when you find gratitude in everything that happens to you, find the good in it because there's a reason why you're going through it. Might not be a good thing, you know, at the time, like all of us. There's not one person on this Zoom call today that has not felt some type of sadness, unhappiness, loneliness. But it's about how you realize you are the light in that dark time. And due to how you respond to it in your emotional self, you can bring your vibration up and clear that darkness a lot quicker. It's about not being the victim. It's about being the victor and understanding that it will pass. This is not something, energy does not stand still. It's always moving. So whatever is happening to you is also moving. The only time it stops is when you stop it in your thought process and hold on to it. And of course, we've discussed that in other lessons too about ownership. Not to have ownership on your emotional self. Because that's the root that actually starts creating a big dam within inside yourself in your emotional patterns, so that you have all this garbage you have to clear out later down in life. And we've all experienced it. Like I said, it took me almost 60 years to clear all my dams that I dammed up from my emotional self and from all the trauma and all the hurt and pain and suffering that I went through as a child. but I had great helpers. Sharon was one of my greatest helpers. And maybe she would like to share this. Not that I'm putting you on the spot, Sharon, today, but my biggest thing, and Elizabeth knows this too, was my mother. Okay, and my mother had left me, when I was 13 years old, and so that created quite trauma and a lot of heavy duty emotions that I took ownership of and owned them. This is my story. This is what happened to me. This is how it made me feel, instead of actually letting it go. So I carried that with me for quite a long time. But Sharon taught me, she gave me freedom from this emotional blockage that I was in. Because one day we were having a discussion about it in her office, and she told me how much love that had to be included in that between me and my mother before we even chose to come here on earth, because we all get to talk about, and a lot of people don't realize this, before you come down here you choose what you're going to learn. And so she could probably explain it a lot better than I can, but she shared with me that my mom and I had that conversation way before I was born, and that how much love it took for her to be my mom and cause me that much pain, but still love me to help me get through the lesson. Can you integrate on what I'm saying, Sharon? Because you say it so much better than I can.
I don't know if that's the truth or not. All I know is that whatever happens is exactly what's supposed to be happening at the time. That's a very hard thing to hear when you're in the middle of extreme pain. And we all have those triggers that set us off, that every part of our personality goes, no, 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 I don't want to experience this right now. It's that resistance to whatever is happening at the moment is what causes such extreme suffering in our lives. And boy, we all have resistance, and we all have triggers going deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you said, Shahawan, it takes a lot of work. In fact, I read something this morning that said that nothing works unless you do. And I believe that was Mary Angelou saying, nothing works unless we do. And it's so much easier to be the victim of our belief systems and our stories. It's so much easier to do that. And that's what causes such extreme pain and suffering. But to be the victor, to recognize, oh, this is pain. Where's it coming from? What's the underlying belief? What's the underlying thought here? How long have I carried this? When am I going to drop the rock? That's the awareness of what power we ourselves have to move forward. And one of the most important things I think you've said, Shahawan, is you must feel it. Feeling it is not reviewing the story over and over again and creating more pain. Feeling it is, where do I feel this in my body? Where is the tension? Where does it hurt? Where is it tight? So much of our grief is stored in our chest, in our lungs. And I'm a hospice nurse, and I have seen so many people that had severe lung diseases because of early grief. And recognizing that we are the only ones that hang on to it. We are the only ones that continue it through our expectations of how we think others are going to treat us. Shahawan, when you talked about your mom, that is my personal belief, and that's what Shahawan was sharing, was that we do have possibly some planning before we ever come into these physical bodies. And it is incredible love for those who participate with us, those who make us angriest, those who are our greatest enemies. Can you even imagine having a conversation before coming into this life saying, okay, you're going to do this and I'm going to do this, and that's going to spur me to greater heights in understanding and unconditional love. I don't know that that's an actual fact and is true, but it does make sense to me. And Shahawan, you have worked this for years and years, as you know, we all have. We don't reach a point where we get to, oh, everything's beautiful, everything's perfect, and I won't have to learn any more lessons. That's not how this life works. There's always going to be something else, something deeper. We would like to think we're going to get to that place where life is perfect. Life is life, and it's all the opposites, the ups, the downs, the goods, the bads, the pleasure, the pain. But the most valuable thing that Shahawan said is keep in mind that everything changes. And this incredible pain that we feel on occasion will change. It will change. We don't live in pain 100% of the time. I'm speaking of emotional pain. There's sometimes some physical pains that last forever, but working on getting the emotional cleared, or not even cleared, but just recognize that, oh, that's an emotional pain. Where did that come from? What can I do to feel it, experience it, and let go of me, is probably the best tactic I can suggest in living these lives.
That is so wonderful, because I mean, you helped me greatly, you know, to overcome the suffering that I was having due to my blockages that I caused. My mother didn't, you know, my mother played a part in it, but I chose to hold on to it. And so there is quite a big difference when you're holding on to it, because the more you hold on to it, the more suffering comes from it. From my point of view of what I went through, it might not affect other people that way, but it affected me my whole life. And because of that one little conversation in your office that day, my whole thought process changed, where I could see the other side and see the gratitude and the love and the unconditional thought process that had to be placed into that pattern for me to learn it, just so that I could get through it and learn it. It's amazing when you can see the other side of it, and you helped me get through that so that I don't hold on to it anymore. And I thank my mother for all the lessons that she gave me. It has made me the person I am today. And many times in my life, I would tell people, no, I would never ever come back and live a life like this again. But today, I would not change anything that has happened to me in my life because it has brought me to such an awareness and gratitude and love of Creator. And then just being here and being able to participate in creating hope and faith and love for others that are struggling and suffering, so that a bright light can shine on them and they can have all moments that, as I said, their light in their darkness will start shining, and eventually they will look around and they're not in the darkness anymore. They're in great awareness. And then they help other people get into that awareness. And each one of us, that's part of realizing that we are all connected. Because that's what, when you connect to people in the same belief system, each one of us plays a part and has a part that we can share and put into it to rise us up into a better understanding and awareness that does give us hope and faith to continue going forward. So in my daily prayers, I thank everything, because everything does play a big part in it. From the sun rising up. I mean, how many of y'all go out and get up early in the morning just to see the sun come up? I do that quite a lot. Sometimes I end up going back to bed, depends on how much sleep I've had. But for me, getting up in the morning and watching the sun come up tells me this is my new day to create and bring into my life and into other people's life what can bring joy and happiness. And you don't have to hold on to the sad part or the sadness of what yesterday was, because yesterday is gone. You have a brand new day, and you can put anything inside that perimeter of that day of how you want to feel. Now, does that mean bad things won't happen to you? Does that mean you won't be going down the road and have a flat tire or something? And no, that type of energy will still come in and hit you too. But it'll be the way that you look at it. Having a flat tire on the side of the road, there might be a reason why you have that flat tire, because whoever stops to help you change that tire might need a uplifting talk with you, or just a smile from you, or a thank you to help them bring that light into their life for that moment. God uses us in many ways that we will never ever know unless the people talk how much it touches another person. I mean, Sharon, you wouldn't know, about how much you helped me with my mom if I didn't tell you. But each one of us touch one another to an extent that helps us continue going forward and creating joy and happiness in our life, because we see other people doing that. So how many of y'all this week needed a little hope in your life? Did you find yourself in a little dump of needing that hope? I saw some hands waving there. It happens to all of us. Hi, Tim. I'm so great. and glad that you could join us. We all need that hope, but it goes back to what I was saying. These Zoom calls that we're having is not just to talk and learn things. It's also we're creating a big soul support group of people, of like-minded people that we can all talk to when we need a little hope and support. Because we all need that, right? How many of y'all on days that are really rough for you lose your faith in what's going on? And how many of y'all have said, why does this keep happening to me? Because a lot of us do that. Why do we have to keep repeating this? Yeah. Well, one of the things that I have learned when I have to repeat something, it's because I didn't get the lesson right the first time. There's some more stuff that I'm having to bring into my awareness and bring into consciousness to change, so that I don't have to repeat it. Because that is one thing that energy does. Energy travels. And when it gets trapped in your emotional self, that's the merry-go-round. I call it the merry-go-round. But you can get off that merry-go-round once you understand that that the energy is always moving, and we're the ones that stop it. We stop it in our emotional self when we want to hold on to the emotion instead of actually feeling the emotion at the time that it comes in and releasing it. When you release it, then you don't dam up. I call it like a beaver making a dam, in your emotional self. And so we just pile up all these limbs until we have this humongous dam. And later on in life, when you start becoming aware of all of this, you have to go back and tear that dam down so that your water can flow through you. Well, we are made of water, and our dam is actually our circulatory system, and the energy gets dammed up in there through our emotional self. So we to work on that is to learn to let the energy go, let it run through you. And Sharon, which y'all might all, really get to know, she describes how to let go of energy so easier than I haven't met anybody that can explain it as well as she does. And once you can realize that it's energy and not your emotion, because see, we are not our emotions. That is a language that is coming through us. And that's what you have to learn. It's a language coming through us, which creates the emotion to make us look at it. And when you realize that you are not the emotional self, that is not your true self, you'll be able to release it a lot quicker without the pain and the suffering that comes along with it. Because that's where the damming up comes in. Because we like to have that identity and that ownership. And the biggest thing is we don't own anything, not even our emotions, because that's an energy coming through us. And a lot of people might not understand that and agree with it, and it's okay. Because we each have our own personal guide within us that guides us. That's the light that takes you, it brings you out of the darkness. Give me just a second. I got thousands of things running through my mind right now. um, One of the biggest things, that I talk about is how we've been conditioned, from young children. Um, you have to be like this. You have to do it like this. In school, we was taught how to compete against one another. Well, there's no competition. Take competition out of it. You're your own being. You do not have to compete for the energy. The energy is there. Embrace it. Let the energy love you. And you love the energy and the understanding that you don't have to control it. But what you can do is you can create with it. And every morning we go back to the sun. As you see the sun rise up, it's a brand new day, and the sun is going to create only for this day. So you are also in your energy field the same way as the sun. So you can create what you want to put in your life for that day. Do you want it to be positive or do you want it to be negative? It's really a big choice. And that choice, we have the right to choose because, we were given free will. And we were given duality. So that tells us that there's two sides to the coin, right? So in your own awareness, are you seeing both sides of it? So that you can guide yourself to the right decision or the right road that you want to be placed upon, and walk. In the morning time, I see myself, like I've talked to people. The very first thing I do in the morning is I tell myself to get in my command post. And most of y'all know what the command post means, but that is me calling my spiritual self into my command post, up into my third eye, into my awareness. Because before your feet ever hit the ground on the bed to get up, your egoic self has already ate lunch, dinner, several snacks. And if you're not aware of that, your egoic self will run your whole day for you because it runs off of time. And so the very first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning, what's the very first thing you do? Most of us look at the clock to see how much time we have that we can lay in the bed a little bit longer. But as we're laying there, you've already went through your whole day of what you're going to do, what time you're going to eat dinner, are you going to watch what you're going to watch on TV that evening? That's your ego itself already mapped out your whole day for you. But spirit wants us to wake up and go out and look at the sun and let Creator place in front of you what is to be done for the day. And do it with your free will in your heart of unconditional love. So that's why I always tell myself, like, when I get up in the morning, I'm in my command post, and I actually allow Creator to place stuff in my pathway. Now, I can't say it's always like that every day because we do have to go to doctors. There's stuff that has to be planned, that you can't change. But most days, I allow Spirit to place the people, the phone calls, whatever comes in front of me, I look at it, that Spirit has gave that to me to address. and instead of just saying, oh, this has happened to me, this is what's taking place, you know. And in the meantime, you create your happiness and your joy, you know, your time that you want to spend with Creator. And you can turn your whole day into such a beautiful day if you're in that type of awareness and gratitude. But to have awareness and gratitude, the very first thing you have to do is have hope and faith. And a lot of that has been taken away from us because of all the suffering that humanity is going through right now. I mean, the minute you turn on the TV, what do you hear on it? They're not showing anything that's a good thing. It's all the thing that's bad. We got fires over here. We got people starving. We got the flooding. It is actually a conditioning because our emotional self and our body actually responds faster than our consciousness. That's why it's so important to be in awareness, because our body and our emotional self will react and we won't even know that we're not in balance with Creator. So it's very important, you know, to get up in the morning and center yourself so that you can keep your being directed by the light instead of your egoic self. And it's a challenge. All of us have it because we're in a human body. And we all know how we want to be, right? We all have an ideal of how we want ourselves to be. And so if you want to be somebody that gives light and love to everybody, then you have to start really practicing that, right? And when most people, when they start trying to do that, guess what comes up? The blockages that we put in our emotional self. Because the healing has to come first. You have to heal all those emotional traumas and remove all those blockages. And the biggest thing that I have told and shared with people is, you know, it's like a weed growing in a garden and it has many vines. And on these vines is an emotion, which could either be pain, it could be anger, it could be hatred. Anger and hatred are two different things. But on this root system and these vines, when you start pulling them off of you, if you don't get down to the very root of it where you can pull it out, guess what happens? That vine grows back. And then you're repeating the cycle to go back through it again. So the biggest thing that I have learned, and you will have to research it for yourself, expectations. I always say expectations is the downfall of the human race, because we have been taught to expect things. But when you expect things, guess what it automatically does without you realizing it? It creates a judgment within you that this has to be done this way. And if it does not get done this way, guess what happens? It creates an emotion in you. Well, that's not right. It was supposed to be done like this. And then those vines, like I was saying, start growing. So what I have learned for myself is, for the roots of my vines, it comes all the way down to ownership. So once you can realize that you had owned that emotion, you own that feeling, you subject yourself to go through that lesson due to that ownership, you can actually pull that ownership vine out, and guess what? You took the whole vine out. And then you can plant your love, your unconditional love and stuff in its place. Because once you do your gardening and you're pulling out stuff, always remember when you remove stuff off of you, it leaves a space in your field that has to be replaced and filled back up with God's light and love. If not, it'll be overgrown with weeds again, and you'll have to repeat the cycle. I've said this many times to people, but I'm going to say it again today. How many of y'all know when the very first time ownership came into your life, into your emotional self? And it's okay if you don't know the answer. But this was a condition, Pam, you know.
Yeah, I
It-
do. I've my first memory. I was about a year and 4 months, and I was standing at the window. My father, my father died in a car accident, and I remember standing at the window and waiting for him to come home, and he didn't come home, and I was so upset. And I just was so upset. Daddy, 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 where are you? Where are you, daddy? I mean, I definitely owned that, because later in life, I would wake up saying, daddy, 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 where are you? You know, and not even knowing why I said that. Because I mean, he died when I was a year old, and I really don't remember much about him at all. But I did own that feeling at that point.
Well, that's good. We've been conditioned, all of us, and it started at a very young age. And ownership actually started with our parents. Uh, so this could be corrected, through parents with younger children, if these lessons get out. But the very first time you picked up your toy or your bottle, you were probably 6 months old. But the very first time that the word mine came out of your mouth was when ownership was created. And from that day forward, that vine started collecting other things to grow. But it started when you were about 6 months old and you picked up your bottle or a toy and said mine. And it was actually used by your parents going, oh, here's your toy, here's your bottle, here's your shoes, look how pretty you are in your dress. But the minute that you said mine, that created ownership. And then we went on to school, and school started teaching us that we had to compete for everything, which was one of the vines that grew off of ownership. Either you were a winner or a loser, in school. Who's going to win the spelling bee? Who won the volleyball championship? Oh, you got to practice hard if you want to get one of those trophies. And so it created competition in us. And as well as today, looking at today, how much competition do you see going on in the world today? That has really created a lot of the wars and everything that we have to experience today, because there's no compassion to be the same. Somebody has to be on top of the other one. has to be better than the other one because it's been engraved in us. It's a pattern that has to, in a cycle that has to be broke so that unconditional love and unity can come in into the communities. And Tim, the one that's joining us today from France, I believe, right, Tim? That's where you're from. You're muted, so you can go up there to the very top of your screen and unmute yourself. Um,
Here I
Robert,
am.
yes, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm living in France now, but that's not where I'm from. But yeah, I've been here for like 7 years now.
So, so that is great. I want to share with you about Tim a little bit. This is the first time I've actually had a conversation with Tim, so I might be putting you on the spot, Tim.
All right.
Um, but this, what we're talking about of ownership and the conditioning and everything, Tim can actually share with you what was taking place back in the early late 60s and early 70s on this subject and what people were trying to achieve that we're still trying to achieve today by putting communities together and bringing people together in love and unity. Do you have anything that you could share with us?
Well, I just wish that that we could kind of try to find that again. And I think it's still possible, but people, like you said, it's like the ownership thing, people are really, they just want to hold on to stuff. They don't want to give too much at all. And they're really stingy with everything, especially with their love. Like I say to people every day, I love you, all my relatives, because that's the way I look at it. It's like we're all kind of like one human family, so, and it extends beyond the human too, because my dogs, I mean, everybody is my relative, so that's the way I look at it. And but not everybody sees it that way. And most people are really stingy with their love. They don't want to give it. They're there's a Grateful Dead song where they talk about, when push comes to shove, you're afraid of love. So it's like that. I'd like to see people get, rid of that sort of like, holding on to love, and letting it go instead. So it's like love is a free bird. There's no holding on to it. And so that's kind of what I like to see people do is get back to that, try to get back to the real, the peace and love, thing that was going on. We lost sight of that, for a long time. Peace
Well,
and love.
yes. And actually we didn't lose sight of it. What happened is it was suppressed down. But you were in the first movement. I call you, and we'll talk about this later, in a private conversation. You and my father and everybody else that was doing and pushing this energy for love and uniting together was what we call the first waivers. And it took like 50 years for that conscious state of mind to come into understanding with the ones that are pushing a second wave out of the same thing that y'all were doing in the 60s. Okay. I believe this time it will work. I believe this time it will go a lot further because we are more in awareness of what is taking place. But during the time y'all were doing it, the ceremonies, for indigenous people were banned. They couldn't dance, they couldn't sing, or they would get in trouble. So the only way to bring the vibration up and get it out into the world to change things was through the music. And of course, the Grateful Dead was one of them that pushed that vibration out, which also brought out the movement of people coming together and love and unity to make communities. But the higher people that were in control and the conditioning of everybody suppressed that, and knocked it out.
Yeah.
But the hope isn't gone. It's coming back. And that's one of the main things that we're talking about is the hope and the faith of it. Because it got knocked down because y'all were labeled, you were looked down upon as the hippie movement, peace, love, and because
Yeah.
the government, not that I want to say that, but it was a way to control and suppress the movement of energy that was taking place. But that movement and energy is coming back. The second wave, there are people that are creating second waves to push this energy, and there are communities that are being built. They're called retreat centers now, and some of them are called healing centers on land, that people can come and learn and even live on to bring this about. So it's coming back. It just took like 50 years of suppression, of that energy being held down, but now that energy is being released again through the awareness and the hope and the love that is coming out of the ones that are in awareness. So it's a great time to be. We are the people we have been waiting on.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that.
And you and I will talk about that over phone conversation, when we can.
All right.
Uh, but that what takes place is having the hope and the faith within your heart that you can get through everything. You are the light of God. Always remember that the light of God is within you. It never leaves you. You are not alone and never have been alone. And again, that's what Sharon taught me, that I wasn't alone. And once I really became aware of that, I guess I kind of took off and run with it. So today I just hope each and every single one of y'all will really think, when you're writing in your journals and stuff, to look at what type of hope do you have, what is your true faith in that you want to create in your life to change the things that you're not happy with. Because that's how you're going to bring this energy back to you, is by getting out of those old patterns that make you sad or bring depression into your life because you feel like you're stuck. But always remember, you're not stuck. That's a thought. That's an emotion. And it's only energy going through you. And if you can understand and really recognize that energy never stops, it's always moving, it's always changing, then that depression, that feeling you're having will not stay with you forever. It has to change. The only time it will stop is if you choose to own it and say, I'm not going to let go of it. And then you become the victim of it instead of the victor. And so we're going to go into questions. Time went by really quick this morning. So if any of y'all have any questions on how you can, write down, because I know y'all are all keeping tablets and stuff to help change the way you feel and address your emotional self, because that is the biggest thing we are working on right now to heal, is our emotional self, so that we can move this new energy into love and unity. And once we get there this time, there will be no suppressing us down. It won't matter if they call us hippies or whatever. We will be there, and we will be standing tall and strong in our true God-like self, because we are the light of God. And the energy is going to continue to go and flow as long as we don't block it. We have to get it in it and ride it like a surfboard, get on a surfboard and ride the waves. Do not let the waves drown you, because you're not the water. You are the tree that stands above the water. The roots, the water goes around the root system of your tree, and that is the tree of life. You are the tree of life, the light of God. And it's amazing when you truly understand that. So do any of y'all have any questions?
Hi, Shahwin. Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
Um, Shahwin, you had said, where was it here? I wrote this. Expectations is the downfall of the human race. I wrote down here, is an expectation being controlling? Shouldn't there be some expectations, like from your spouse, from your employer? Shouldn't we have some? I mean,
Well, yeah, we've been conditioned, as I was saying, we've been conditioned to have expectations. Okay, but instead of having expectations, if you just use creating the emotional stuff that goes into it, then you will never fall down. When you expect something to happen, most of the time you get hurt because that expectation does not happen, and you have imagined it this way, and it totally did not turn out that way. And guess what? It left you in some type of suffering mode. Either you were angry, hurt, or sad, feeling left out or lonely, because it was an expectation instead of a creation. So everything, yes, when it comes to employees and stuff, you do have to have guidelines of how you want your employees to work uh, and stuff like that. So I will have to think about that uh, and talk with Spirit and see if Spirit can give me a better way to explain it to you. But there should never ever be any expectations, because it does take us down. It doesn't rise us up. And Spirit wants us to rise up in vibration, not go down in vibration. Does that make any sense to you, Susan?
Well, yes, but I still think how can we live totally with no expectation? You know, how can we possibly do that? I'd say a little bit more, but we're being recorded, so this is being recorded.
And we can look, and you can talk on the telephone too about this too later if you'd like.
Because, yeah, you know, being controlling is a character defect, but hey, I expect the bills to be paid when they should be paid. I don't want to be jerked around at all when it comes to money, you know, this, that, or the other thing. And
Well, and yes, so that's expectations, but also expectations of what you're talking about are also priorities that have to be, have to be taken care of. So it could be just the type of wording that you're using instead of, you know, the priorities that, yes, you got to pay the light bill, you've got to pay the water bill because that's the way we live. All of that has to be done.
yeah, I mean, I just, you know, I got into it this past weekend, and you know, the story I got was, well, that's their money, you know, it was overpaying the rent, you know, and I mean, it's someone else's responsibility, you know, not mine. But I always have to check to make sure that it's done, because many times it doesn't get done.
Correct. It affects you if it doesn't get done.
Yeah. And so I was checking on it, and I really just got a load of crap. And it was like, well, if they want it, they'll come and get it. And blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I was like, I can't even say what I said. We're being recorded. And it's like, but I'm really glad that I can speak spontaneously today and say, hey, crap is crap, you know, crap is crap. And for years I couldn't. And, you know, I would get stuck in the bullshit zone and wouldn't be able to get out of it for days. And now, you know, a spade is a spade, you know, and needless to say, the rent is paid, but you know, I just told it the way it was, you know. It's being self-centered and irresponsible and da 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 da. So some expectations, if that is a assigned responsibility of another person, it's not assumed just because you may be married or dating or anything like that. I mean, that responsibility is assigned to a certain person. It should be done. It's not wrong to expect it to be done, is it?
No, that's not a judgment. See, there's a difference between judgment and truth.
Okay.
Okay, there's a difference, you know. Now, like, let's just say I'm gonna use your example about the bill paying. It was somebody else's responsibility to pay the bill. Um, if this did not take place, it would have created a judgment within you, you know, on your emotional level, because it would have brought up anger. Okay. Why aren't they doing their part that they're supposed to be doing? Is causing hardship on us. All of that is a judgment. Okay. Where when you can go talk to the person and say, this is your responsibility to do this so that this does not take place within us, you are standing on the truth, which is truth and judgments. It are a real thin line that mocks each other. But when you stand on the truth, it does not fall. Okay. And it will also fix the problem and the emotions that has come along with it. But if you create the judgment part and standing in judgment, then you're going to have to go through the circle of the emotions that it created. Does that make sense?
Yes, and there's consequences.
There's always consequences. Because remember, we were talking about the car. That's your thought. When you have a thought in your mind, you put it into action, right? You put it into movement, which is moving that energy, because this is how energy moves. And then there's a reaction. Okay, that's exactly what happens to move energy around. And so when you're having expectations, those expectations, if you're in movement with that, create judgments, which brings the reaction of anger and all of that right back around in that circle in your emotional self. Okay, so when you're trying to heal that, it's very tricky, because you have to be in full awareness that you're standing in the truth and not in judgment.
Okay,
If that helps any.
yes.
I mean, because
Yes.
sometimes the truth is going to hurt sometimes. But guess what? If you stand on the truth, you will never fall. But if you're standing on a lie, which all the other stuff, you're going to fall down and go boom, boom. That's part of the lessons that we've all went through our whole lives. We fell down a lot, haven't we? We've skinned our knees, we've broke our legs, but we've had to get back up and do it again. But once you stand on that truth line, you don't fall. So I hope that helps. And if it doesn't, you can call me and we can talk. We can talk more about that. Because I know about there's some things we can't discuss because of being recorded. So we can talk, about it at a later time. Does anybody else have any questions? How about you, Elizabeth?
I have a thought on my mind that isn't going away. And that is, like back in the 60s when you said that we were being suppressed, you think of the government and everything that was going on at the time. And I still see it as the shadow working to keep the light from shining. And that still happens today. And how we, through our own truth or not judging or ownership, how do we fight that shadow self of the collective, I guess? You know, it's so big. And yet we know light wins and we know the light is stronger and we know all that, but there's still a lot of shadow that works, is still working on us, is still working on the world.
Mhm.
So how do we not fall into that place of we're never going to get through this? We keep seeing the same stuff with everybody, with the whole world.
That's correct.
Shadow work.
That's correct. The biggest thing that I can tell you is that the ones that are in awareness with Creator, have been seeing the signs through spirit that things are changing. You and I have talked about this a little bit on the phone, on our phone conversation. Everything has to be torn down and then it will rise back up. And on a humanitarian level,
Okay, honey.
on
Okay.
the humanitarian level, the tar,
Tired, huh?
all of this, these thoughts and everything that we have to walk through on of everybody else's, it's really heavy duty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take a while to clear that. But that's where the second wave people are coming in with the prayers, you know, that they're doing on the ley lines and all the ceremonies and all the dances that are taking place, is pushing out an energy wave to clear all of this off of the humanitarian level. Is it going to take some time? Yes. I mean, the first wave that started back in the 60s, you know, it took 50 years. Now, Spirit told me that it was not going to take that long this go around, because within the next 5 to 6 years, the third wave people, which are the younger kids from 18 to 20, will join us, and they'll create their energy wave of pushing all this gooky stuff out through their dance, prayer, and everything, on a different vibrational level, which will probably be like the music like my daddy used with the Grateful Dead and everything to get the vibration out. But it's gonna hit all the dimensional vibrations, but it's gonna come quicker. And as you can see with where we're at today, right now, there's a lot of things being torn down
Mm-hmm.
in humanity. And once that space gets cleared, that's new space for this energy to move into. The best way to explain it, like some of the places that are on fire, once that fire is extinguished, that energy there has been consumed, and some it gives that space is open for new energy to come in on a humanitarian level to rise up and heal humanity. Same place with the flooding. It's being done with the elements. Kind of hard to explain. Earth, air, wind, and fire. But it's all connected. And so through spirit, the ones that are in awareness can see that this is taking place, and that the tearing down of the strongholds is what we call is taking place at this time.
Okay,
So
right.
once this takes place, then the new vibration is going to come in and lift us up.
Okay, good.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I hope that helped a little bit.
it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because it is frustrating to see, because it seems like it's a never ending battle. But you have to understand the stuff that is taking place. We've been in the cycle pattern for 50 or more years. So it didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. It's a process of energy running through it. And it's the same thing as what I had said one of my other classes is, if you think that you're going to, which this is expectation, if you think you're going to work through all your emotional self and be, never have nothing happen to you, then you're wrong, because things will take place until the day you take your last breath, because energy moves. Nothing is stagnant. The only time that it gets stagnant is if we get trapped in our emotional self, and that is what traps the energy, and it can get really bogged up, as we're experiencing on a humanitarian level right now.
Right, right. Okay. It can take us back to our very first class with the, excuse me, the white wolf and the black wolf, and which one are you feeding?
Yes.
And if you try to think of that on a collective as well, we do see more of the dark side being exposed and coming to the light. So they're being found out.
Yes. And see, once light is shown into the darkness, it's not dark anymore, is it? And one day, the light will shine in all the corners of the darkness. Now, does that mean that the darkness will go away? No, because there's a yin and yang to everything.
Mhm.
We will always have the dark, and we will always have the light, but it will be more imbalanced. Where right now we're so out of whack, balanced energy wise, because there's the darkness is the one that is tipping the scale right now. So the light vibration has to come in and bring that vibration into a better balance with the dark. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Because it's like a scale. And right now we're the spiritual part is way down here, where the dark is way up here, and we're going to try to bring it back up into balance. But we will always have the yin and the yang. But hopefully when that takes place, there will be such a great awareness within the people that the male energy of the dark that is in control right now will come into a better position with spirit and become the warrior spirit in a relationship instead of being an enemy.
Mhm.
That makes any sense.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a lot, y'all.
It is a lot.
It's like I said, when we have these classes, we don't know, they're not planned. It's given to me by spirit right before the class starts most of the time, and it usually hits right when all of us need to hear what we talk about. So that's how you're supposed to allow spirit to come into your life. Move your egoic self out of the way and walk in spirit, walk in joy, walk in happiness. And it's quite hard to do in now the way the world is today, because you can walk outside and within a few minutes, just somebody speeding past you can make you irate, because you'll go, look at that speeder. Don't they have any compassion that there's somebody walking on the road? All kinds of stuff happens. but it is how you control your own emotional self that is going to set you free. And I love each and every one of you. And of course, it's time to close out this lesson for today. We'll meet
Oh,
again.
Shahawen,
Yes, do you have a question, Sherry?
I wanted to thank you for last class. I was able to put what you taught into work because someone went out of town and I was in sort of speak house sitting, but then they wanted me to take on all these extra things too when I was there. And I was like, oh, well, there's so much to keep up with. And then I realized, well, I'm not the one doing all this stuff. I'm not the one making all these messes to keep up after. And I found myself owning it. And then I stepped out of it and spoke up. And so I wanted to thank you for that.
Well, I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing that. That just shows you're growing. Should be very proud of yourself. Because the hardest thing for any of us is to say no to somebody. If you have a caring and loving heart, which a lot of us do that carry the light within us, that's a hard lesson to learn, is how to say no. But sometimes you have to say no to protect yourself. Because if not, somebody's gonna come in and take all your energy away from you. And then you won't be able to do the work that Creator has placed in front of you because they've done took all of your energy out of your cup and your cup isn't full anymore. So thank y'all. I hope y'all have enjoyed this class. Tim, thank you for being here. I hope you come back and join us again. I look forward to speaking with you on the phone whenever is a good time for you. I will be home this weekend. I don't plan on going anywhere this weekend. I'm having surgery tomorrow, and Friday is my infusion day. So most of y'all know I'm usually at home during that time. So if y'all need to call and talk to me, if you don't get me, just leave a message and I'll call you right back. Now, Tim, I tried calling you back, but I can't call the friends. So, but now I know your number, so I will definitely answer it. I hope each and every one of y'all have a very blessed day, and I will see y'all next Tuesday. Much love.
Love you.
Did you
See
want to
everybody
pray,
next
Paula?
week.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Rodney, sorry.
I'll close with prayer.
Please close with prayer.
Right. Father Sky, Mother Earth, all our ancestors, all our relatives, we thank you so very much for allowing us once again to step inside this most sacred circle. We ask Creator, Mother, and our ancestors that you guide us during this week, that you help us to realize that we are the victors and not the victims, and we are the light that we are searching for in that darkness. Help us to shine brightly, help these words that were spoken through Shahawen to us resonate in our hearts, and help us to walk in this path, in this way, and not just leave and forget about what we heard. Help us to learn, help us to apply what we've learned, help us to be the light that we seek, help us to be the change that we want to see in this world. We ask that you watch over us during this week, protect us in every way, guide us in a good way, and help us to walk in a way that is pleasing in your sight. We love you and we thank you. Aho.
Amen.
Oh, thank you.
See y'all next week.
Thank you.